right. Hi, everybody. Today I'm speaking with Courtney. She is with Bespoke Nutrition and Health Coaching. You can find her at Bespoke, Bespoke, nutrition and healthcoaching.com. Today we are going to talk about inflammation, how it affects your body, and give you some tips and tricks on how to reduce it and just what to be aware of. So, hey, Courtney, how are you today?
Michelle, it's so nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. So we wanted to talk a little bit about, and you are a nutritionist.
I'm not a nutritionist.
But are you certified in England?
So that's kind of a complicated story, and that's actually how I became a nutrition coach. I have a 3-year diploma with like a science background from a school in London, which is true, and it's in diet and lifestyle from a functional nutrition standpoint. And ideally, I did want to become a nutritionist, but I love health coaching, and here in the US, it's a little bit different. So thank you for getting that out of the way.
But you are very qualified to speak about inflammation and how to reduce it, what it means. And that's why I wanted to talk to you today, because you are pretty knowledgeable on this topic. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what inflammation is, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, inflammation is a hot topic, and it's also really vast. I think I can safely say that we've all had inflammation in our lives, either from a cut, a bruise, some kind of injury. Even a sprained ankle triggers the body's immune reaction. So it's kind of it's necessary. It's absolutely essential in our lives. But there's a difference between like acute inflammation that stops and chronic inflammation that the body just doesn't turn off, and it continues for months and years. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, because this chronic inflammation is actually, studies are showing that it's involved in degenerative chronic diseases such as like diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, a lot of autoimmune disorders. Inflammation may play just a little bit of a role in how that could occur. Also, osteoarthritis is inflammation plays a role in the development of osteoarthritis. Chronic fatigue syndrome, that's a big one. Inflammation is, so even cancer, Parkinson's disease, and also, studies are showing even Alzheimer's disease. That's very complicated, but again, inflammation is out there, and when we can kind of dampen that response, hopefully we can avoid the body, the tissue damage that is happening with chronic inflammation.
Yeah, I was reading an article about Alzheimer's disease last night, and I wasn't aware. I knew about osteoarthritis, and just autoimmune diseases, but I had no idea that they're now linking it to Alzheimer's disease. So when we're talking about this, I know that inflammation can happen to anybody, but is there a specific group of people or ages that you start to really see a problem with it occurring?
Yeah, that's a good question. We all have, I think you're more talking about this immune dysregulation where, where the chronic inflammation, it's not shut off. And, that kind of happens with age because, they're just diet and lifestyle. But there's this loss of immune tolerance. And when we think of immune tolerance, we're really thinking of our gut and gut bacteria. And, chronic diet that is unhealthy includes like fast food and sugar. That can kind of affect our gut bacteria and lead to immune tolerance.
Okay. And let's talk a little bit about stress, how stress affects your body and inflammation. Because I know
Yeah.
like a lot of the people that watch me are special needs moms, and many
Yes.
special needs moms, we live in this world of just stressing, worrying, anxiety. That fight or flight mode is a normal mode for us. We are often in that more than we are in our relaxation mode.
Yeah. And a lot of people, when we think of stress, we think of that fight or flight mode. But I also wanted to mention that something that that we are able to control even more than getting into the fight or flight mode is blood glucose regulation. So that blood sugar balance. So, when we go and we're not eating healthy, that is actually putting a lot of stress on our body. When we're tired and we're grabbing caffeine and we're grabbing that, what we think is healthy at a coffee shop, that big.
It's that quick pick me up in the middle of the afternoon.
Yeah, this is just perpetuating that blood sugar roller coaster where we're dumping a bunch of sugar into the blood. So then we're dumping a lot of insulin to deal with the sugar in the blood. And insulin is very inflammatory. So eating a healthy diet is not only good for that gut bacteria, that gut microbiome, and keeping the lining of the gut healthy, but just cleaning up the diet and watching what you're eating and avoiding processed, like ultra processed foods.
So what should we be eating?
Whole foods. I think that, we were talking earlier and you mentioned, shopping the perimeter of a grocery store, eating fruits and vegetables. So if I could, you asked me about diet, so I'll go back to that. If a couple of things that I would suggest to your clients is hydrate. That's really going to help inflammation in your body, get rid of any toxins.
Water seems to be the answer to most things, right?
And you don't realize that you're dehydrated, everyone's walking around dehydrated.
Yes.
Yeah. And then eating whole foods, increasing vegetables and fruit, because when you have inflammation, you want to get these antioxidants, this fiber in, that's going to dampen and kind of control free radicals being created. And it gets very scientific and I could really nerd out on you, but basically eating whole foods, fruit and vegetables, lean, healthy proteins is going to be really a ticket to supporting gut bacteria and dampening inflammation. And also, as I say, dampening inflammation, you want to increase your intake of omega-3 fatty acids. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've heard about that. You've been reading.
I do. I actually I have a naturopath doctor, and he told me, because a lot of people, we go and we get the fish oil supplements, but he recommended a liquid version of that, and I take it every single night. Yeah, I also do. Have you seen that sipping vinegar? So they sell this stuff, sipping vinegar. I have right now turmeric and honey. They have it with ginger, and I take 2 teaspoons of that every night too, because that apple cider vinegar is also really great with calming the inflammation down. So whenever I have issues arise, it's inflammation in my body. And that's why I'm so passionate to share it with people. And when I meet people like you, I'm so excited because I'm like, yes, somebody that can really educate me and others about the importance of this, right? Of feeling tired. And I know what started this for me is I was diagnosed years ago with fibromyalgia. And the doctor looked at me and said, you have a really stressful lifestyle and it is just going to get worse. And for me, it was like challenge on. You don't know what causes fibromyalgia. I know it's inflammation, but you're not going to tell me I'm not going to get better. And that's when I started to deep dive into nutrition and inflammation and how to reduce it. And so it's so important. It's so important to understand our bodies and to understand what we put into them is essential. It's like feeding the temple, you know, you're either going to fill it with trash or you're going to fill it with healthy things to just help it grow. And
Yeah.
it's so, the society we live in now, it's so easy to go to fast food, to just drive through, pick up what we need, get a frozen meal when we get home. And there are ways that we can look at that kind of stuff and think ahead. If we know we're going to a restaurant, look at the menu before you go to the restaurant. What can you get there that's going to be better for your body? Because it's so easy to sit down and forget what your plan was. Like, oh, look at the mashed potatoes and the loaded chicken and the, you know, and even the salads at restaurants. Like, I will look at what they contain and you think you're eating a salad, it's healthy, but it's not. So just be aware of what you're putting into your body.
Yeah. And, you know, you also like, when you talk about salad dressing, that does a little, light bulb on my head, but you want to also eliminate any sensitivities or allergens in your diet. And that could be gluten, dairy, and soy. Those are like the three big ones. And, you know, gluten can be found in soy sauce, salad dressing. You know, gluten is a protein found in wheat and barley and rye also. So eliminating.
So no beer. There are gluten-free beers now.
I guess so. I mean, you gotta live a little, you know. I'm gluten-free. I still have fun. But you also named ginger and turmeric, and those are really high antioxidant, very nutritious foods that you can include in your diet. So that's awesome.
Good. And then, go ahead.
And then also, you know, I talked about gut bacteria. So you can incorporate things like onions, you know, kefir, sauerkraut. Your gut buddies love, you know, chicory. I think tomatoes, if you could have like the nightshades and things like that.
And that's another tricky balance is when you're dealing with healing inflammation, nightshades like eggplant and tomatoes, and my mind is blanking at the rest of them, but they're all like in that. Is squash a nightshade?
Should not be. Squash is actually, it should be a really good food to include. It's got like
I'm addicted to squash, especially zucchini squash. It
is lovely. You could put it in everything. You could even make like a zucchini bread, and you know, and it's just slightly sweet just because it's got that. I don't know. It's got something to it that makes it really nice.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I love it. So you've given us a lot of good information today. I also wanted to just touch a little bit. You and I had talked about perimenopause and menopause, and women in this stage that inflammation is a little more chronic. Can you just touch on that a little bit?
Sure. So yeah, with menopause and perimenopause, you know, all these hormonal changes are not only affecting you know, our cycle, but it's affecting our whole bodies. So we do tend, women's inflammation does tend to increase as we enter menopause. And everything that I mentioned is really important for somebody in perimenopause and menopause to include in their diet. And then also movement. When you're moving, you're active, you're exercising, your body is creating antioxidants, which kind of combat those free radicals, that damage that's happening in your body. You know, and the link between perimenopause and inflammation is basically estrogen, and this imbalance that's happening between the good kind of estrogen and the bad kind of estrogen.
Okay.
So it's, people get achy joints. Yeah.
I'm in that stage of life now. It is an interesting roller coaster to be a part of. And then just a couple tips that I wanted to give. I know like 4 of the biggest things, and we've talked about some of them today, 4 of the biggest things to reduce your inflammation: exercise, diet, relaxation. So you want to learn how to maybe meditate, learn how to work on different breaths, and sleep. Get a good night's sleep. Those are 4 big ways to reduce your inflammation. And on that, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. I would love to speak to you again, Courtney.